Markets are down? You sure about that? All right, so I'm going to read you my blog that I just posted this morning. I sent an email to subscribers on my email list, which you can get if you just follow this video down below. The very first link will say subscribe to my email. If you don't like me or you don't want to be here, don't subscribe. Hey, if you don't like dogs, don't subscribe. I'm not asking you to do so. I'm just saying if you want to. The more people, hey, we don't need a ton of people to subscribe. But if you want to be kept in the loop of my blog posts or anything else I do, and I probably email once or twice a month. Anyway, so this right here is on my website, which I'll share with you. It's just under Heritage Wealth Planning. So if you go to Heritage Wealth Planning, it's the same old site for 5 years. Okay, hold on a second. We're going to go in the other. We'll go outside here when it's cold. Sit with my baby case because he's fussing and fighting and carrying on for some reason. A little bit chilly out here, but we will sit out here nonetheless. All right. Is that okay with you, Finney? All right. Brr. Chilly out here, everybody. Brr. All right. All right. So here's Heritage Wealth Planning. You'll see me. One of these days I'll update it at some point. My man Dave Simon up there at, up in Bethlehem, PA? I forgot. Where's Bethlehem? Where is he in? I can't remember. Anyway, so what you do, just go to Heritage Wealth Planning, and then you scroll on down, and you'll see the blog post. So I read a blog, like every 2 weeks. This is from Denise. Bear market got you down. Here's from me, the #1 IRA mistake. October 14th, October 30th, November 13th. So basically once every 2 weeks. Right now I got a lady working on a reverse mortgage blog, which I'm looking forward to reading and posting. Anyway, so let's... Markets are down. You sure about that? I want to go into this one right here. All right, and hopefully you'll see an advertisement. Yeah, sweet. You'll see an advertisement up there because I get that free Google AdSense. All right, so I posted this video yesterday where I was pondering the idea of selling all my investments and just paying down all my debt. Unfortunately, not all my debt, my friends, because even net of taxes and penalty, I don't have enough to pay off this monstrosity of a mortgage. Some of you had asked, and rightly so, should I just go ahead and downsize my house? Nah, because I still got 2 kids here, and I still got 2 kids that will come back for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, spring and summer breaks. Not downsize until all the kids are out of the house. In fact, there's no place to downsize to in this area. There isn't any. It's crazy. You could buy a townhouse in Alpharetta for less, $200,000 more than what we bought this house for in 2012. That's how the markets have gone up. So we haven't even doubled the price. This house hasn't even doubled in the 10 years we've been here. So a lot of people think, oh my goodness, you can downsize. I mean, not downsize and stay in this area. It wouldn't make any sense because we'd actually be having a smaller house for more cost. And why do that? I don't want to do that. Hey, but it's a good observation. That's something we will do once the kids are out of the house, and then we'll downsize to another area. That's for sure. All right. Either way, but that's not the point. I want you guys to understand the point. Now, I haven't committed to doing this yet, and I just kind of spitballing. I don't know if I'm gonna. Frankly, as we say here today, I probably will, but things could change. And I'm certainly not going to do it this calendar year because the tax year. I will wait till the new tax year for sure. So my motto now is pray, pay off debt, and travel light. Pray, pay off debt, travel light. That should be your motto too, actually. And again, for my reasoning on that, you can see my video. But anyway, I have been getting a lot of emails, my friends, and comments. The markets are down. Are you sure you really want to do that? And I say the markets are not down. Not by any stretch. Case in point, Wellington, total stock market, and Wellesley fund. Wellington is here, total stock, Wellesley. This is just from Portfolio Visualizer. Each single one is above where they were in 2020. Even with this year's massive decline, we're still looking at that. We put $100,000 in, Wellington's at 109, 110 basically. $100,000 in, total stock's at 123. We put $100,000 in, Wellesley's at 103. That's with the massive declines in bonds and the bear market we're in right now in stocks. All right, the following is from January 2021 through October 2022. Wellington and Wellesley are down, but not by 5. Wellington is down by less than 1%. Wellesley is down by less than 5%, but we'll just say 5%. And here's so far year to date as of the end of October. Wellington, I can't see what that says. Does that say 83,000? I think so. So they're all down by over 10%, but less than 20%. All right, so I mean, it's a bear market for sure. But let's go back to the 10. And don't forget, I just want to say something here too, by the way, is I think I had written it here. I don't see. Hold on a second. I did write off. This is with the worst bond markets we've ever had, ever. We've never had bond markets ever this bad. And yet this is the best we got. Or I should say the worst we got, however you want to look at it. It's nuts to me. This is the worst bond market we've ever seen. It's not going to go this further south. It's just not. That's one of the reasons I'm hesitant to sell, because I just see the bond market taking off like a bat out of hell. I could absolutely be wrong. I don't know. But again, that's not the point. The point is, if you look at the last 10 years, $100,000 invested right there. Look at that. Right there. That's total stock index. That's at about 375. That's Wellington. That's at about 250. That's Wellesley. That's at about 180. Definitely not down. They're right here. Definitely not down, even though the bond market has had its literal worst performance ever in 2022. Ever. Did you hear me? The worst bond market ever. Are you really down? No. The markets have grown significantly for years, decades even. But the past growth doesn't mean it'll continue. Maybe I'm like a child raised during the Depression who didn't squander anything even when times got good. My grandparents come to mind. I was 10 years old when Grampy took me and Ben, my brother, to a San Francisco Giants game. They had Johnny LeMaster, the second baseman for the Giants, was signing autographs before the game. I got a picture of me in my Oakland A's hat and a picture of my brother in a San Francisco Giants hat getting ready to get a signed baseball from Johnny LeMaster. We were going to get hot dogs, popcorn, soda, cotton candy, everything that you get at baseball games. Oh, no. As the game wore on, my granddad, a game wore on, my anticipation, somewhat frustrated. It's like, Grampy, when are we going to get this stuff? My anticipation is boiling over, wondering when we're going to get the goodies. And that's when Grampy busted out the PB&Js and sliced carrots. I'll never forget the Candlestick Park. Yeah, we're in the nosebleed seats and way high in left field in Candlestick Park. And Grampy busts out the PB&Js and sliced carrots. I'm like, these kids are having ice cream, having popcorn, and here we are, PB&Js and sliced carrots. Well, at least we'll get a soda, right? Nope. Water fountains were plentiful, and those free. God bless you, Grampy and Grampy. Grammy and Grampy did take us to Denny's once, which was pretty cool because I got to eat chocolate pancakes. But ordering orange juice? You crazy? That stuff is expensive, even in California. I was like, what, California oranges, right? California oranges, Texas cactus. And as we're wrapped up to leave from Denny's, out of the corner of my eye, I caught Grammy stuffing, bless you, Big Bear, stuffing leftover biscuits and those small grape jelly things into her purse. And she winked at me as I looked at implied, can't let this stuff go to waste now, can you, Josh? By the way, just an aside note, my grandma, this after Grampy died, we're sitting around a dinner table in New Jersey at my uncle's house in New Jersey, and Grampy smelled the Grammy. This is like well after the second. Well, maybe Grampy is still alive. Actually, I think about it, I think Grampy was. I think this might be in the 90s. I can't remember. But Grammy's like, we're like, "What's up, Grammy?" She goes, "I smell Saddam Hussein." I love her. She was crazy, but I loved her. Just like my mom, crazy as a loon, but I love her to death. Just, oh, Grammy. She was nuts, man. It was just in a wonderful way that only a grandma or mom could be. Now, remember, my granddad retired as a captain in the Navy. In fact, he was a test pilot in the same unit as John Glenn. Side notes, his three older brothers are also aviators in the Navy. His brother Richard actually took out the Japanese cruiser Chikuma. And I posted an interview right here. This is my Grampy's brother, older brother, Richard Deichmann. And you can hear him talking about that. It's fantastic, fantastic. Let me just go back to my... Yeah. So Grampy had a Navy pension, plus he was a commercial pilot. It wasn't like they were poor, man. It was just that their childhood kind of scarred them because they grew up during the Great Depression. And their dad was German immigrants, so they're first-generation Germans. And they know what it's like to be, let's put it this way, discriminated against. Because in World War I, this is before Grampy was alive, they weren't keen on Germans, if that makes sense. And by World War II, because they all went in the military, it's a little bit different. but all that stuff certainly was relayed to my granddad from his German dad, who told him about discrimination and being without. Anyway, so back in the late 90s, Charlotte and I when we lived in Phoenix, we went up to see Grammy and Grampy in their Los Altos, California home. This was the first time Charlotte ever met them, so Grampy spoiled us by making his famous sauerkraut with sliced hot dogs. He was German through and through, after all. For drinks, we split a 12-ounce can of Coke. If memory serves, Grammy didn't drink Coke, so Grampy poured 4 ounces to each of our cups. He'd go around the table, and 1 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. If you wanted more, we'd drink water. I gotta go in the other room here. Mind you, Los Altos. Let me pause. I gotta go in the other room. I had to change locations because the computer was going dead. Mind you, Los Altos, even then, wasn't a cheap place to live, but they had been in that same house since like 1967. Today, that house would easily go north of $3 million, but as is typical of the millionaire next door, you never know they weren't strapped. This is the mindset of the children of the Depression. Waste not, want not. I'm sure you have your own stories you can share about your parents and or grandparents. My point is that I just can't get over what happened in Japan from 1990 as the same as my grandparents couldn't get over what happened during the Great Depression. From 1990 through 2011, $100,000 invested in Nikkei would be worth $28,000 at the end of 2011. And yes, inflation wasn't a huge issue, but this was even including inflation. And it wasn't like the Japanese were an emerging market at that point, or they're run by Chavez or commies either. Hugo Chavez from Venezuela had already emerged into the titan everyone thought it was in the late 1980s. Even if you're only pulling 1.9% a year, as some of the doomsdayers are telling us is the new safe withdrawal rate, without even adjusting for inflation, you still ran out of money in year 23. You have to keep in mind that the golden years of Japan, 1975 through 1989, in those 14 years, 100,000 invested grew to $1 million. So let's go back to the graph, but this time let's see what the U.S. markets have done from 2009 until now. Wellington, 100,000 invested is worth 355. That's with the huge, biggest bond drop ever and a 25% decline in the stocks. Total stock market is at 552. Total Wellesley is at 257. And the total stock market was right here, just under $700,000. Now, not quite the run-up of the 14 years of Japan, but you see some similarities. Eerie similarities. Even with this right here, significant run-up. Now check this out. Higher interest rates will mean higher interest payments and deficits. For example, if interest rates were 1 percentage point higher than the projected for all of 2021, interest would cost the U.S. government $530 billion in debt, which is more than the cost of Medicaid. If rates were 2 percentage points higher, interest would cost $750 billion, which is more than the federal government spends on defense or Medicare. And at 3 percentage points higher, interest rates would cost $975 billion, almost as much as spent on Social Security. That was written on March 10, 2021. What were the 10-year rates then? 1.5. What are they now? About 4. So he's saying at 3 percentage points higher, more than what it was then at 1.5, that's at 4.5. Interest would cost $475 billion to the federal government, which is almost as much as we're spending on Social Security. Let me remind you of an article that Phil Graham had written in the Wall Street Journal back in 2013. Since the World War II era, the average maturity of outstanding federal debt has been about 5 years, and the average interest cost on a 5-year Treasury note has been about 6%. At this interest rate, the expected cost of the Obama debt burden will eventually approach some $590 billion a year in perpetuity, exceeding the current annual cost of any federal program except Social Security. And that's in 2013 he had written that. You see, we don't even have to go back to the 5-year yielding 5.9 to where the interest on debt exceeds Social Security as the biggest expense the government has. And this is not fear-mongering to ask this simple question. How long can this go on for? And I don't know. You don't know. No one knows. But this goes back to my fundamental concern. What if a Japanese scenario emerges in the States where many people get wiped out? Okay, then the next logical question would be, if that happens, who are the people who get wiped out? And thankfully, we have the answer right in front of us. Debt paved the road to ruin, so the game was to calculate what could be saved by doing without. One of the worries that the world could end was a foreclosure of a mortgage on a home. It happened only once or twice in this town which this lady was writing about up in Maine. But when neighbors read in the newspaper of a foreclosure of an old couple as they grew pale with shock. They knew all about the illness or accident that kept the mortgage from being paid. And that's from Laura Burns of Maine Hamlet. I just want to point out, an accident or a illness kept them from paying back the mortgage, which means they had debt, they were working, and all was good until the days of work stopped and they couldn't pay back the debt. And then the foreclosure happened. And then we go from Carrie Meyer's Day on the Family Farm. Although nearly 1 million farmers across the country lost their farms to foreclosure in the early 1930s, these farmers were in the minority. Most farmers, typo, carried only light debts or none at all and had little fear of losing their livelihoods or their homes in these uncertain times. And I do make a point. Carrie Meyer was my professor at George Mason. And we email each other. Well, I email her and then she emails me back on occasion. And I said, Carrie, you got to write, put more of your books out there because I've been talking it up and people are having a hard time getting it. And she said she had nothing to do with her as their publisher. So it's available now, Days on the Family Farm. So you should get it while you can because so here it is, $25 now for a new issue because they don't write them, they don't produce them that much anymore. You can get a Kindle for $18. You should, hardcover. And I didn't have to buy this because Carrie gave it to me with a nice note she had written to me as well. All right, let's keep going because good book, man. Big fan, long time, first time. All right, so to close this up, I have no clue what's going to happen. But I know this, debt doesn't cease to exist even if your assets do. What if your very place to live, your house is leveraged, and leveraged, I mean just have debt on it, and suddenly you can't pay the debt because your job is no longer and your assets you previously relied on are gone. You think this is a scare tactic? Let me remind you of 2006 through 2010. I was in the financial business back then. My very income was reliant on the investments of my clients. So the markets fall off a cliff. What happens to my income? It falls off a cliff too. What happens to my debt as I had a mortgage? It falls off a cliff too? Of course not. It's still there, staring right at me. Yet now, because my income is much lower, my debt requires a larger percentage of my income to pay it back. Oh, no worries. Just sell some investments to help. Did you not hear before? Investments fell off a cliff. So sell when the S&P 500 is 57% down, and because it's an IRA, I still have to take a 10% penalty and pay tax on top of that? Oh, by the way, you can't forget how many people lost their jobs, their very income source during that time. I was fortunate I landed a stable job with USA about 6 months before the real crap hit the fan, which brings to mind what happened in 2000. The markets fell through the floor again. People at the Schwab unit, where I was working at, had just left. People at the Schwab unit where I had just left to take a job in Virginia at a bank were getting laid off left and right. At that point, I was renting, thankfully, because it's much easier. So it's much easier for us to get up and leave Phoenix to move to Virginia. We're renting a place in McClellan Boulevard in Phoenix. And then when we landed work in Virginia, we were able to move over there easily and rent another place until we found stability and bought the house we ended up living in Dayton, Virginia. I remember many people who were stuck in both 2000 and 2008, their loan to values were over 100%, meaning they're upside down. They had more debt than the house was worth. All right. You can't sell your home to move to find work if you're upside down. So thankfully, we did not have that issue. We were able to move because we're just renting. 2 times in my career, I've witnessed this with my own eyes. I'm also a student of history and know what happened in the U.S. in the 1930s and Japan in the 1990s through the aughts. Thus, I don't want to hear about the markets being down. This isn't down. This is a sneeze. It's when the flu comes where the contagion hits. And the contagion hits everywhere at the same time. And I want to be free from that contagion. No vaccine necessary. Anyway, that's a good article that I had written. Very proud of it. Took part of last night all morning to write it. So I don't write a whole lot because it's easier to just do videos. But I tell you, man, I don't know where the future is. And I'm not being negative, Nelly, or nervous. I don't know. You don't know. That's a problem with trying to time this. I mean, I absolutely, I got four of these guys sitting right here. That's weird. Shouldn't have four here. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just, the issue is the debt doesn't go away. The assets can, the income can, but the debt doesn't. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So again, I need to put a new mantra on my website. Pray, pay debt, travel light. And that's, I tell you, man, I don't know. I mean, what if you sold your stuff? So here's the other thing: you sold all your investments, you still need income. You know what I'm saying? What if you sold all your investments and now you lose your job, and now you have no debt, or even if you still have some debt, which I would, but you still need income. Where's that income come from? Where's that money come from? Are you gonna have to go back in debt? Obviously, you would. And that's a risk. There's always a risk on everything you do. There's no right or wrong answer, dudes. Now the issue that I have to contend with is I absolutely believe the bond market is going to tear it up. I absolutely do, and I want to be part of that when it does, given that I've just went through the worst bond market in history. But the debt rate, the debt is still there. You see what I'm saying? If I'm wrong, or if it takes longer for the bond market to go up, or if the bond market does go down, I literally can't see it happening. It's a scary proposition. Don't forget, if you want to sign up for my email, just click the link down below. Don't do it if you don't want to. If you don't like my politics, I don't want you here, man. It's okay. Just don't do it. I don't need you to sign up. But if you want to, by all means, do so. If you have thoughts or questions or comments, put them in the doobly-doo down below. All right, down below. We'll see you.